this heaven?
No. It's Iowa.
Ben, I'm sick. I need a cocktail.
Well, I got some gin and orange juice. That work for you?
Not as good as beer.
I don't have any. And you were late to the pod today, man. Like, this is like the 6th time it's happened in a row. Like, they want me to fire you from the pod.
What about Kevin B. Bangin'? What's he doesn't need to get fired?
No, he's on time every time, and he doesn't come in, reeking of cocktails.
Straight gin.
Yeah, if you haven't figured it out, we're talking bringing out the dead on the Pod of Dreams.
6'2" Young is here, baby. And I'm gonna take care of you.
Thursday started out with a bang. Heat, humidity, moonlight, all the elements in place for a long weekend. I was good at my job. There were periods when my hands moved with the speed and skill beyond me.
How long have you been doing this?
5 years.
Wow, you must have seen some things, huh?
But in the last year, I'd started to lose that control. I've been seeing the ghosts.
You ever notice people who see things are always crazy?
I just needed a few slow nights, followed by a couple of days off.
There's a double shooting, 41st and 8th.
What happened to chest pain, difficulty breathing, fractured hands?
Don't even slow down, just keep on moving.
Nobody loves me, Chris.
You have the power, Jesus, to spare this worthless man. Rise up! I'll be banging!
Damn, you guys are good.
I'm on my way out. Anytime now.
Nobody gets fired, son. Look at me.
You swore that you'd fire me if I came in late again. You swore it. You swore it.
I'll fire you tomorrow.
Old man's a bus driver, mom a nurse. Sort of born to it, I guess.
Rule number 1, don't get involved with patients' daughters, you understand?
Our mission to save lives.
Blast off!
Help others and you help yourself. That was my motto. I understood how crazy it was to think this way. Then something good will happen. Everything just glows.
Here's to the greatest job in the world.
Frank! Are you okay?
Never felt better in my life. How are you?
I'm good. Good.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pod of Dreams. If you listen, we will pod. I'm Ben along with Kevin and Eric. And today we're talking Bringing Out the Dead. But how are you doing, fellas?
Hey Ben, doing great. Thank you.
Eric, quiet? Church mouse?
I'm barely alive riding through this ambulance we call life.
Sure. Aren't we all? So, nice segue. Bringing Out the Dead. I want to get everybody's preliminary thoughts about this movie, because this movie fascinates me. I picked it, well, for a couple of reasons. I saw an article which Nicolas Cage thought this would be one of his movies and one of Martin Scorsese's movies that's most due for like a reevaluation and will be remembered much better later on, and it's just underappreciated. And that's kind of true. This is the second time I've seen the movie. The first time I watched it was, I don't know, maybe a decade ago. And I saw it, I liked it, but then I just like completely forgot about it. And it just doesn't get talked about. I mean, you've got the big hitters, Taxi, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Casino. Later stuff gets talked about, but this one just feels like it just completely fell by the wayside in Martin Scorsese's oeuvre. And it's also a movie I have trouble kind of like processing my thoughts about it. I mean, it's clearly not a crappy movie or anything, but it's like there's stuff going on in it, and it's just one I need some help parsing through. So I wanted to talk about it. But Kevin, why don't we start you? So from last 2 weeks ago, you hadn't seen Bring Out the Dead before.
Oh, I saw
it in the theater.
I saw it, yeah, 25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I was surprised upon second viewing how much I remembered of it from 25 years ago. If you had asked me anything about the movie, I would have just said Patricia Arquette was in it. and Nick Cage. That was all I remembered. But watching the movie, I remembered it. And then I still, maybe like you, I vacillate between this being a okay movie and a great movie. It's weird. I have a hard time picking where it should fall.
Right. And what about you, Eric? This was, you just watched a month and a half ago for the first time ever?
Yeah, I watched it. It was, a few months ago. I'd never seen it before. It was leading into, Scorsese had a movie coming out this year, Killers of the Flower Moon. I was like, I need to rewatch some Scorsese movies. And I watched, Shutter Island was one. Fucking loved that movie. And then I watched this, and I'm kind of in the same boat as, man, there's, some really great things about this movie, but it also has no plot. And I don't quite know. I mean, I know there's things that it's about, but I don't know what the movie's about. If that makes any sense.
Sure. I think there's probably a lot of subtext potentially, but
I mean, it's like every Scorsese movie. There's stuff about religion, right, and faith.
Oh, heavy, heavy.
But this movie, I think, just thinking about it after watching it, I didn't really rewatch it again. I watched clips and because I had just watched it, and it the stuff. Basically, this movie to me seems like about drugs. The whole thing is about drugs. Even his job as an ambulance driver, he treats it it's like crack. He hates it, doesn't want to do it, and then once he stops, he's like, I got to do this shit again. And which is basically what a drug addict.
Yeah, he's chasing the high of saving somebody, right? He says he's high and he feels incredible. But it's the best feeling in the world.
He never really saves anybody.
Well, we're seeing him during a down spell. He says it after the fact. We catch him in the middle of a really intense dry spell of he hasn't saved anybody. Although I don't know what he means by that because he saves people in this movie, but it doesn't count. The drunk homeless guy, he saves him, quote unquote. But I mean, not really. I don't know what he means by save.
You talking about Mr. O?
Yes, Mr. O, the stinky
Mark
drunk.
Anthony. Fucking Mark Anthony, right? Isn't that
him? No, he's Noel.
Oh, I thought Mark Anthony was the homeless guy that wanted to kill himself.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know who Mark Anthony is, Ben?
Are you talking about the musician, right? So, we're getting people mixed up.
He was married to Jennifer Lopez, and
Noel is the guy asking for water that wants to kill himself. And that's who Kevin's talking about. Mr. O is the alcoholic guy who's a smaller part than Noel is.
Sure. Okay. All right. Okay, sorry.
It's all good. That's fine. I mean, there's a lot about human suffering in here and the people that are forgotten and overlooked and not seen, right? Some people seem to call or engage with the paramedics. They want to be seen, and that seems to be part of what's going on. They're overlooked, they're ignored, they're the forgotten drift-offs of society. I think that's going on in it. But, I think the drug metaphor makes a lot of sense because, I mean, he does talk about how good it feels, and you see Ving Rhames, right, saves a baby boy, and he's fucking nuts. He's just becomes a full-on lunatic. Starts slamming booze and just speeding down the street crazily. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And there's all the religious stuff. And I wonder if I were smarter and more time. I mean, we see it's divided by 3 different nights where Nick Cage is with 3 different like
the 3 wise men
drivers. I was thinking more. Well, maybe I was thinking John Goodman seems like he's more like the pragmatist. His goal is to someday I'm just making money and I'm going to be done with this. And then there's Tom Sizemore's the nihilist. He's everything sucks.
Tom Sizemore.
Hardcore nihilist. And then Ving Rhames I have a tougher time playing with. He's almost like a hedonist. I don't really know. He's got a different, but you could almost pick a different philosophy about suffering in the human condition with each one potentially. I think there's that going on. But so I mean, Kevin, because we're all kind of just struggling with this movie. It's crazy how quickly I forgot it because there's times where I'm just thinking. I was watching this this movie is great. Why do I forget about it? Why is it not talked about more? And then there's times where it's just it doesn't seem to land and I can't quite put my finger on it. But are there parts of this, from your perspective, Kevin, that didn't land or weren't working for you? I'm trying to get this piece map.
Not very much connective tissue between scene to scene. Sure. The overriding thing is Nick Cage, right? So it's kind of episodic. And it's not strung together with a plot, like Eric was saying. So it kind of makes it hard to really remember especially the specific order of events.
Yeah, it's kind of like its own drug trip, really. You know, it's hazy. You can't really remember what's happening. You know, I don't. To me, this movie is like a lot of Scorsese movies for me, where I love how it's made. There's so many like rear view mirror scenes where you're looking up at the mirror and the street looks insane. Like it's amazing to look at. And almost every Scorsese movie is that. But somewhere along the line, like we talked about the boxing movie. That to me is the same thing. Like, it looks cool. It's super intriguing, but something I can't connect with it, like, personally. And
you're talking about Raging Bull.
Raging Bull, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I mean, some of his movies I think are like flawless. Like Killers of the Flower Moon, I thought was like absolutely a perfect movie. And Wolf of Wall Street, perfectly done. Goodfellas. But then some of his movies like Casino, I have a hard time connecting with that. And this is kind of in that same boat for me. It's like, I think it's great and amazing, and there's so many incredible lines, and the cast is amazing. But there's just something
stacked.
Oh my God, the cast is just.
Yeah, Nick Cage gives a great performance too.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
This is like,
and he's not dialed up.
No, he's not.
I mean, sometimes he is. Sometimes
he gets. But he's fairly muted by Nick Cage standards.
Yeah.
Like, he's pretty.
Yeah, it's not Face Off Nick Cage.
No, or Con Air. No, it's not any of this. That's interesting. I think I want to like this movie more than I do, but I can't figure out why still, because there's so much going on with the religious stuff. There's so much going on with drugs, and the drug's called Red Death. And there's just something happening in Oasis and deserts and salvation and witnessing that's happening. And it's too ephemeral, and I can't put my finger on it. But it fascinates me.
But like Silence is another one of those movies. Like, I just can't connect with that subject matter. I don't care about it, you know?
Yeah. See, and in an article I was looking at, I mean, Scorsese did this movie because he's in awe of paramedics. And it's true, like, it's an insane job. I mean, you think of doing it, how difficult it would be to be a paramedic. Yeah. It seems, especially like the night shift, just crazy, and it would be
the
really,
night shift
awesome.
In New York City in that time frame, like, would have been probably the most challenging job you could like ever imagine. You know?
Yeah, the pre-Giuliani years, those were probably really tough.
Yeah,
before America's Mayor came in and cleaned things up.
Yeah,
right. That's exactly right. And so he's in awe, and he's got reverence for him, but there's also like this silliness sometimes that doesn't quite land. It's tough. Like, tonally is part of this, is the episodic thing. It's like the tone oscillates, because there's times where it feels like we're in broad comedy. We mentioned before we started recording, there's a scene with Ving Rhames who, there's a guy who's OD'd on heroin at a club. And Ving Rhames, I think he's just pretending, or maybe he's really religious, but just to fuck with these guys, he pretends to be like reaching out to the Lord for help. Well, Nick Cage secretly, gives him the whatever Narcan or whatever it does. Yeah, that undoes it. And it's kind of funny and goofy, but it's totally so bizarre, because then the next scene, well, not the next scene, but the next trip is to go where there's a woman who's pregnant and allegedly a virgin. I assume she's been making some side deals for drugs, but whatever. And we see, like, a baby is born. There's two babies. The second one is like a stillborn, and it doesn't make it, and it's like horrifying. And you're seeing him just try to keep this baby
running there. Yeah,
trying to give it serious and brutal, and the tone, it's so jarring tonally. Like, goofy goth drug addict coming back to that, and that's part of what you would probably experience as a paramedic is that tonal shift, but it's jarring as a viewer. I don't know.
Well, I think Nick Cage adds to that, because that is what he is, right? He's goofy as shit, right? In most of his movies, it's hard to take him seriously at all. But sometimes he can be a fucking amazing actor. And I think honestly, I think Nick Cage is the wrong person for this movie. Even though I think he does a great job, I just think he's the wrong person for it.
So who would the right person be? Circa 98 or whenever this was filmed.
Well, I mean, obviously De Niro, he's maybe a little old for that role, but he
Yes.
would have. I think he would have maybe understood the role a little better. I don't know.
I think we would have had a taxi problem with De Niro driving through the streets. I mean,
Yeah.
I had visions like the contrast to, there's a lot of scum on the street. I was just thinking when I watched Bring Out the Dead of De Niro picking people up and talking about how much there's scum and filth everywhere, and how dark and jaded he is versus, Nicolas Cage is at least a little bit more optimistic and less hateful. I mean, he talks about how most of the time his training isn't all that useful, and it's just that he's witnessing these people die. So I don't know, but yeah, it's a tough role. I don't know who would be good for it. I don't know. It's tough. Do you think you just try to imagine some unknown person? They could sink the landing.
Oh, like Daniel Day-Lewis.
Well, sure. There's not a role Daniel Day-Lewis couldn't do, I guess. But he hadn't hooked up with Scorsese. That was the next movie. That was Gangs of New York. It's coming after
That's
this.
another one. I just don't connect with that movie. Something about it. On paper, that should be my favorite movie ever. And it just doesn't land with me. I don't enjoy watching it.
That's interesting. I haven't seen it in a long time. I enjoyed it the first time, but I'm certainly not going to put it in the pantheon of great Scorsese movies, That's interesting. But there's times where I sometimes feel like, okay, we've kind of hit this ground a little bit before. We're not necessarily new. I mean, I like The Departed, but comparing that to his other crime movies, it just doesn't hold up.
Love
it's
that
not
movie.
good.
See, that's the difference. Is I absolutely love that movie.
Oh, so I think it's fun, but I think there's already kind of a version of what we've already done before.
Yeah, I'm with Ben on that one.
It's like, okay, you got it. You made a good movie, but this is different. I mean, and this is when Scorsese was super weird. I mean, he had Age of Innocence 6 years before this, which is a Victoria. I don't know, it's not Victorian era, but I don't know. It's a period piece starring Daniel Day-Lewis. So actually, he had worked with Daniel Day-Lewis already.
Yeah, there you go. Get it right.
That's fine. I would have loved to see Daniel Day-Lewis in this role. He'd do great in any role. I don't know. He's just one of those guys. It'd be hard. I guess a broad comedy he'd be terrible at. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe even then he'd be good. But what do you guys think was Ving Rhames' character's deal in this movie?
Just to come in and just blow the movie up,
He was showing a different way of coping.
Right.
Way of he took on religion as his way of battling the ghosts that Nick Cage couldn't defeat in this movie. Or at least
Yeah, I think the three guys he rides with, like you said, Kevin, all had different methods of dealing with the trauma that they experience on a daily basis. I mean, he was a cocksmith, right? Didn't he say it? Cocksman? I'm a true cocksman. I don't mix the sea.
But see, that's where you because his energy was just so broadly comic.
I only touch white women when I'm holding them down for the police or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
What about rule number 3? Don't go on a date with the dispatcher, whatever her name is.
Love.
No, that's right. And
wasn't that Queen Latifah?
Yeah.
The dispatcher?
The other dispatcher was Scorsese himself.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's tough because he does the religious stuff, but he's also I don't know, he gets drunk and he's goofy and I don't know. I had trouble taking him seriously. And the Shades guy was interesting too. I guess this is a small disappointment for me. We kept hearing Shades was the guy in the ER who had his sunglasses and he kept saying, "Don't make me take my sunglasses off." He never takes his glasses off. I thought at some point he would take them off and have to do something crazy, but he never does. He says, "Just don't make me take my sunglasses off," and he never does. That was a disappointment for me. I was hoping shit would go down. I mean, I don't know. The ER and the ER itself is horrifying. I mean, it's awful. I don't know if that's what the ER was like in the early '90s and whatever borough we're in.
Part of the movie too was just criticizing our healthcare industry, how fucking stupid it is, and sending these people back out to just get sick again and come back. It's just a complete because Scorsese loves to criticize institutions, right? Like Wolf of Wall Street is 100% just digging in on how awful our financial industry is. And, you know, the police, he's always criticizing that. The religion, like he just likes to do that. And I think this movie, a lot of it is just showing how awful our healthcare system is for the disadvantaged people of the city, right? The people that aren't well off and wealthy and have good insurance. People have to go to the ER to get any kind of care. So I think a lot of it is just showing how like shitty it is to try to get some health care.
Yeah, they talk about the system of like Noel wasn't in prison, so now he's just causing trouble, and they just kind of babysit him.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, we see the same characters over and over again. Which just looks like a nightmare. But yeah, those are the people who have no other option but to go to the ER, so the ER is just overcrowded and just royally screwed. It's brutal.
I do think the Patricia Arquette piece kind of slows the movie down, because it's like they don't have. Do they ever romantically connect? They don't, right? She and Nick Cage. I wouldn't say they fall in love. Would you?
It's romantic. No. What do you think, Kevin? Though, I mean,
Well, after he murders her dad, they have a moment. It seems.
Yeah, I think we build up to it. I mean, it's a slow burn. I mean, and maybe the takeaway is that his way of coping is connecting with other humans. I don't know, but there's a scene where they're in the back of the ambulance. He's giving her a ride home. Or he's getting a ride home, I think, or something like that. But they're both sitting back and they're getting jostled around. And there's like this awkward first date silence where nobody's saying anything. And they're just looking at each other, kind of smiling and trying not to get jostled. And that to me is like, oh, there's some burgeoning intimacy here. They never have sex or anything, but his interest doesn't seem platonic to me. And she seems...
10,000 Maniacs is playing in the background.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. It's like, so it feels like there's a romantic arc. It's just, it's subtle, it's small, it's short. I think they wanted to give us a reprieve from the craziness, but you think maybe, Eric, we should have had just more craziness and less
of a reprieve? Just go for it. Yeah. Because it really doesn't ultimately tie into the, I mean, I guess it is sort of the, there's this, it seems like there was this side story about her and her dad that, you know, he was in the hospital, and then we just like kept coming back to it, you know.
Well, that's the through line of the movie is he goes to save the dad, and he sort of saves him depending on how you define save. Like he keeps his body alive, barely, and then ends up killing him in the end. So depending on how you define save, he saved him, but then he really saved him in the end by letting him die. That's the main through line. That's your only narrative arc, really, because yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just a series of these sequences of all these.
Well, there's
crazy
the Red Death
things.
and the drug dealer that he befriends, and then the drug dealer falls.
Right.
And gets impaled by the wrought iron railing.
Well, Red Wine plays, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, pause. What are your guys' thoughts on the soundtrack? I mean, Scorsese's had a lot of great soundtracks. Where does this stack up in the all-time Scorsese soundtracks?
I thought it was a bit on the nose for each choice.
Well, I mean, it's of its time, too. You know, late 90s kind of tunes. Is the Rolling Stones, do we get Gimme Shelter in this at all? We don't.
We get a different Rolling Stones song. I don't remember which one it is, but I think we get a different one, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's set in the early 90s. I mean, it came out in 99, but I think it says in the beginning, like, this was the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I liked it a lot at the time, but then again, like so much of the movie is, it doesn't stick with me. Like, none of it lingers after I watch it, which is just so weird. This was so weird. If you asked me if we were recording this as I was watching, it'd be like, this movie's, it would be pretty hyperbolic about how great I thought it was. But then literally it was the next day I watched this. Was this Saturday, I think? Maybe it's Friday or Saturday. By the next day, it was like, oh yeah, I watched Bringing Out the Dead last night. And it just all started to just immediately flood away. And maybe because there isn't enough narrative, like, bone to hook everything on. I don't know. But at the same time, I just think there's so much in here that interests me. I don't know. I'm perpetually stuck with this one. what to make of it. You haven't even talked about the guy from The Wire who's in this movie, by the way.
Omar?
Omar from The Wire, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew who he... I don't know. I'd seen The Wire when I watched this the first time.
Michael K. Williams, right?
Yep.
He recently died. I think he OD'd. Didn't he OD on something?
Yes, my wife commented when we were watching. It's like, oh, that's depressing.
Yeah.
He plays this dealer of Red Death. But it's weird because I can't think of any scene that didn't like work on its own merits. There are any scenes where like this falls flat, other than the comedy a little bit. The scene where he's like wanting to get fired. Well, it's clearly supposed to be comedic because Nick Cage comes in late. His boss says, "Hey, you're late. Like, you're breaking my." I don't know. I don't think he says you're breaking my balls, but that's the implication. And Nick Cage is hoping to be fired, and the whole thing is he's like reassuring his boss, encouraging his boss to fire him. The boss says no, and it's comedic, but it doesn't. That
he like gives him vacation time. He's like, all right,
I'll forward you some vacation time.
Yeah.
Like it's comedic. That scene didn't work for me. But that's like if I had to pick an absolute like bad scene, that would be the only thing I think is like borderline bad. I mean, can you think of any actual sequences in the movie that are just straight up bad? Like, I mean, you don't like the pacing of the Patricia Arquette stuff, right? So like that slows it down, but you'd prefer more just frenetic insanity, strung out. I'm strung out with Nick Cage, which I do get that, but like, did any of those scenes not work individually?
No, they were all compelling.
Yeah, you make a good point. They all were compelling. They all.
Oh, I'm not really trying to convince anybody of anything. You could convince me. I'm just like flabbergasted because
you know what it is for me.
It's a bad scene, but
I think this is one of those rare examples where this would work better as like a TV show. Where like each episode he's riding with a different dispatch and he's got some crazy night and crazy shit that happens to him. He picks up somebody because that's what this movie is, right? It's like he goes to the punk club and Ivy Bangen's there, and then Patricia Arquette's dad. Like he's just going to these different calls to save people and gets into these crazy random things that like, let's do an episode on that. You know what I mean? Like tonight's the episode he's with Ving Rhames and the next night he's with John Goodman. Like, I just wonder if maybe this is like weirdly a better like Netflix show.
Well, that's interesting.
Like prestige TV show.
I give you a little more, narrative leeway for each.
And then have like a full arc story that's going on at the same time.
Sure. I actually like that idea. No, I mean I think this helped me understand it a little better. It's almost like it's just bizarre where this movie might in some ways be less than the sum of its parts, which is weird to say because actors are great. Okay, the soundtrack maybe not as good as some of the Scorsese ones, but not out and out awful. Performances good, individual scenes work, but like just the package together somehow, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and the screenplay was written by this guy who wrote Taxi Driver, so he obviously has worked well with Martin before. And
that's like
you're not a Marty guy. You don't call him Marty.
Marty.
We're not on a first name basis yet. After he hears this podcast, I think he'll start letting us call him Marty.
He was on Colbert the other night. What a delightful human Martin Scorsese is. Like, he starts explaining about various scenes and how they came up with the story for Killers, and he's just like so excited. He's like 81 something, like he's like in his 80s.
Yeah, he's like 3 feet tall.
Yeah, amazing guy. What a guy.
He's a movie lunatic. He's just part of the first
loves
crop of
movies.
Filmmakers that like have loved movies since they were kids.
Pictures. He loves making pictures.
Yeah, went to film school and like that's it. Like just no doubt this is the only thing I want to do. There's no doubt whatsoever. There's no options. This is it. This is what I got to do.
He's like, I could have never done anything other than this,
Right.
And to think he's friends with DiCaprio and like fucking, the biggest movie stars in the world.
Well, he helped bring up DiCaprio a little bit.
Sure,
I mean, like Mean Streets is before Godfather Part 2, and I mean,
De Niro's not De Niro without Scorsese. Like, it's
true.
It just never doesn't happen.
That's true. No, he's an absolute legend, and there's so much I like about this movie and want to like more. But it's not a risk per se, but it's also when you think like it is a lot different than any movie he'd done before in a lot of ways. Yeah, there's some the religious stuff is there, and
see, I think it's a lot like Taxi Driver. It reminds me a lot of that movie.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. You don't have the out and out violence that movie has. It's almost.
But if Nick Cage had ended this movie where he just went crazy and shot up that drug house himself, wouldn't it like basically be the same movie?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. This one has more goofy comic energy than Taxi Driver has.
Because didn't he go there to save Patricia Arquette? Wasn't she getting high? Right?
Yeah, she got high in the Oasis and Size Oasis. Yeah. Yes,
but he got high too, and then he had a paradoxical.
Yes, he got more stressed out, not less. And even if you medicate, you can still get shot by rival drug dealers. You know, it's not like being chill is any, doesn't protect you from getting shot up like we get the contrast where like Nick Cage is so stressed out and then he gets the woman's pulse. She's like 2 beats per minute. It's perfect, but she ends up dead just because of kind of random luck. Chance.
He shot the drug. It's implicated that the drug dealer had his bodyguard shoot Omar.
Oh, the drug war. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yes, right. So retaliation.
Right.
Got it. Okay. That makes more sense. I guess I didn't catch that piece, but okay. That does make some sense. But yeah, he sort of saves her. But I don't know. I see some similarities structurally, I guess, a little bit. Nick Cage isn't overtly crazy like De Niro's character is in Taxi. I mean, De Niro's character is disconnected from reality, and Nick Cage is almost too connected to reality in like the worst possible way.
But I think it would almost work better if we see Nick Cage's character like start out okay, and or more okay than he is, and then start like a Taxi Driver. Travis Bickle doesn't start out like off his rocker. He seems sort of.
He's a little off, but he's sort of there, right? I mean,
right, and we watch him.
He could go either way, right?
Yeah. Whereas in this movie, Nick Cage comes in, he's already strung out and losing it.
Yeah.
He doesn't get any better or really any worse. He's just kind of hanging on.
He is. Well, he's hanging on is the way to put it. He's just barely hanging on, and he's just not sure what to do. And then, I guess one of the things that threw me off the first time I watched this movie, not so much the second time, is when the ambulance crashes. Like, the first time I saw this was like, was that real? Like, he just walks away from an ambulance crash and...
Well, then he just comes back to work the next day, and here's Tom Sizemore. Like, can you imagine after that night, and then you got to get to work the next day, and then you just see Tom Sizemore is like, hey, buddy.
back together, old times, old gang coming back together. Oh, yeah.
I mean, is Tom Sizemore still with us? Is he still alive?
He's gone.
He died? God, that guy seems like he must have just been the craziest fucking person to be around.
Why was he destroying his ambulance at the end of the movie?
No idea.
See, that's a great question. There's probably a really interesting ideas you could come up with why, but yeah, that's not ever explained or addressed. We just see Nick Cage walk by. He's like trying to. I mean, this is the thing. Like, he says he's tried to kill the ambulance, and she keeps on ticking, right?
Yeah.
Earlier in the movie, so this is just another instance of him wanting to kill the ambulance so that it dies, and maybe he can get a new ambulance or quit as well.
I think it's all the drug thing. It's like you're killing yourself. The ambulance is the self.
Well, it could be.
And you're basically trying to kill yourself by doing drugs.
Yeah, but does Tom Sizemore do any drugs? I mean, he's just...
No, but the ambulance is the metaphor for the body.
Okay.
The user, the addict.
Okay. See, I feel like there's so much stuff that could chew on, but it just doesn't coalesce. It doesn't just come together. Frustrates me. I want to like this movie more because there's, I mean, like, it is brilliantly shot. I mean, all the, like, it's expertly, filmed. I just think so many cool little shots everywhere. Here, there, just the reactions, and then there's just the right little framing in the background. It just doesn't work.
Can we talk about the father that has the heart attack at the beginning?
Yeah, of course, please.
No, I'd rather not.
Is he supposed to, in the movie, it's suggested that he's not supposed to get better, and he's just kind of going to be a vegetable. But at some points in the movie, they talk about how he's actually doing better. And I'm wondering, is there a point where we know he's not going to get better and that it was a mercy killing? Because Nick Cage is crazy because he's hearing voices.
Yeah, he can't sleep. He's like an insomniac, so he's starting to lose it. I mean, that's a good question. What do you think, Eric?
I guess I don't have an answer. I mean, I think Nick Cage has murdered him.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
well, he does.
Yeah, but I think there was, because they were shocked, right? Weren't the doctors like, wait, this is almost like a miracle that he had some brain function, or he was responding.
That's what it seemed like, but it could have just been brainstem function. But
also, like, what wasn't like Kevorkian big around that time in the 90s? Like,
some euthanasia.
That idea of that was like a big thing in the pop culture. Can you do that? Is that not only just legally but morally okay to end someone's life?
Well, yeah, I don't know, Kevin, that my guess is that we don't have enough in there to know with any degree of certainty that he might get better or could get better. I don't think it's very clear, like, yeah, I think you just, at some point you got to make the call. But I guess I kind of got the impression that it seemed highly unlikely he would get better. I mean, he hears the dad's voice in his head, and you got to assume Nick Cage is crazy, but also he was coded dead like 17 times, and they just keep bringing him back with defibrillator. So it's without all this intense medical intervention.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's contrasted by Tom Sizemore basically killing Noel and Nick Cage having to resuscitate him and bring him back to life. So I'm not sure what Nick Cage is up to.
Well, I'm not sure Nick Cage's character knows what he was up to, really. But I get the impression that Noel could get better physically. Like, he wasn't brain dead or having those issues where he was, like, legally dead for 10 minutes, like Patricia Arquette's dad. So he did, in fact, save him in a couple of senses, kept Tom Sizemore from murdering him, and also, like, kept him alive, did the mouth-to-mouth, kept him from being out for 10 minutes and got him. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of muck in this movie that's tough to sort out like that. I don't know. I mean, I guess I interpreted that we were supposed to view it as he was doing an honorable kindness. The family could move on with the father's death, and the father could stop suffering. I guess I kind of took the psychic connection with the father at face value, that he was getting the actual sense of what the dad wanted, but I mean, who knows? I don't know.
Well, Patricia Arquette's character does say he hated being tied up and he wouldn't even go to the dentist.
Right. That's true.
So it definitely wouldn't be something that he'd want.
Yeah, I don't know. That again was like my least favorite part of the movie, was that whole plot line and the continue to come back to this vegetable guy. Didn't love it.
I did. I
was like, all right, just kill him. Like, let's move on.
I was like, can we just get one shot of this guy for the next 2.5 hours? Would be ideal for me.
But that was the ending of the movie. That was like the dramatic arc, was him making the decision to euthanize him.
And I think we're supposed to interpret it as a kindness. I guess I viewed that he was doing a good service and a good deed, but I guess other people could disagree. I don't know. Remind me a little bit of the ending of $1 Million Baby. I mean, that's obviously a very different movie in a lot of ways, but that's with what's her face getting put down because she's
Hilary Swank.
There we go. Yes.
Well, there's a movie I never want to watch again.
And next week, $1 Million
Baby.
That's picture winner. Well, I don't know. I mean, we seem to be sort of hovering around the same. Review wise, I guess I give this movie a 3.5 out of 5 is where I'm at. I mean, you can convince me it's a 3, you can convince me it's more, but it's like it's so well made that I want to give it at least that, but it just doesn't hit the great movie. It just doesn't lock in. It just doesn't click. It just doesn't quite work. What about you guys?
That is exactly where I landed. I was going to say that before you. 3.5 stars. It could be a middling movie when I think about it. Sometimes it's a great movie when I think about it, but overall, 3.5 stars.
So Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. So 4 out of 4. Perfect
he's a big fan.
I do this thing when I watch a movie, like I don't know. Are you guys on Letterboxd? Do I even know that?
I'm not on Letterboxd. I probably should, but I'm not.
I'll actually log the movie like right away, and usually my like initial like 10 minutes in is usually kind of how it stays.
Yeah, you're the guy like if I know within the first 30 seconds what kind of movie this is. Sure.
Sometimes I'm wrong, but sometimes it's right. And this movie, 30 minutes in, I'm like 4.5 stars, like fucking perfect movie. And then as I watched it, and I was like dropping it lower and lower and lower. I think I ended up at like 3.5, 4, in that range or whatever. But
see, that's fascinating. I was almost exactly the same. There's someone was like, this movie is great.
Right.
Why? Like, this is so great. Why do I not like this movie so well? And then by the end, it just kind of, I don't know. It's not any one thing. It just doesn't quite all work together. So I feel like we're on the same page. I mean, it's worth watching. I think there's some really compelling stuff, but it is, you can say it, relatively minor Scorsese. I couldn't. He's just got so many better movies. That are obviously that lock in, that linger in with you. Wolf of Wall Street is one I rewatched a while ago, and it's like, it's great, and that it lingers. I think about that movie after I watch it. It's like rattles around my brain.
That's a movie the first time I saw it, and we'll have to do that eventually. But like, I didn't get it. Honestly, I didn't. My brain did not comprehend what the story they were telling. And the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is just 100% a comedy. He hates every one of these people. And that's, and then once my mindset was caught up to that, I was like, this is the greatest movie ever made. It's like, what an accomplishment.
Yeah. Well, dark comedies are weird. I mean, because I know you and I have talked about like, it's protagonists. Usually you're supposed to like them and they're the hero. Yeah. And it's weird where you center a movie around a character that's ultimately awful. Supposed to take away that it's awful, but it's still entertaining. I know we did that with Raging Bull too.
Killers of the Flower Moon is a lot like that as well. Yeah.
It's like, it's tough. It can be tough to have a movie where the main character is the bad guy, really, but it's not overt about it. It's all just there, and they just aggregate some of the performance. But I'd love to talk about Wolf of Wall Street. I love that movie. But okay, 3.5 stars.
Yeah, I can see why Nick Cage likes this movie so much, though. He's in it almost all the way through. I can't really think of a scene.
Is there a scene
him.
He's not? Yeah.
And he gives a hell of a performance too. So I can see why it's one of his favorites.
Boy, Nick Cage in the 90s. Holy shit, was he just on top of the world then?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had Oscar Gold to parade around.
Uh-huh. Did he only win the one for Leaving Las Vegas?
I think that's his only win. Yeah.
Never seen that movie.
It's great, but it's depressing.
You want
to be bummed out. Watch that movie. He
doesn't leave in a physical sense, I guess.
I heard it's got a happy ending. I don't know. Maybe we're talking
it's
about.
It's great. It'll give you a fresh zest for life watching that movie. And that's not a subtle performance.
Like $1 Million Baby.
Bring Out the Dead
watching him drink himself to death.
Yeah, it's bonkers. The whole movie is a big drunken messy haze. Okay. Well, Bring Out the Dead. worth a watch, I think, but it's probably not going to live up to the legend that is Martin Scorsese.
Shouldn't the movie be called like The Ambulance?
That was a movie that came out.
Yeah, the Gyllenhaal movie.
Was that Michael Bay? Oh God!
Yeah, I actually saw that in the theater.
Yeah, how was it?
It was all right. It was all right.
Okay.
It's a lot of drone shit, like drone filming. There's just like drones flying like constantly. So
that sounds kind of annoying.
Yeah, it was.
If it's Michael Bay, it's probably overdone.
Yeah,
I'm just guessing.
Slow motion drones constantly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll close the ambulance door and crash it.
We'll go take our cocktail of whatever the hell we can find.
Yeah, we'll code this one. Call it.
All right. So the next movie I'm doing, right? I'm picking the movie. Is that correct?
Yeah. You're next on the cycle, my friend.
All right. So I'll give a couple clues, 5 clues. You guys jump in, try to guess it, and that's what we're watching next. All right. So this movie was released in 1992. That's the year that this was. So we're staying in the 90s.
Unforgiven.
No. It's not Unforgiven. The movie was directed. The director of the movie this was the first directorial debut by this filmmaker. Well-known filmmaker. No. But this is the director's first film. Okay. This movie won Best Action Sequence at the MTV Movie Awards that year. Very credible award show.
I'm trying to think of what was cool enough with kids in 1992 that I would have been able to win Best Action Sequence.
El Mariachi?
Nope, but I like that movie. I like Desperado more, but it's not that. That's a good guess. It also was nominated for Best Visual Effects at the Academy Awards, but it didn't win. That's not another clue, just throwing that in there. All right, so this is the third movie in a film franchise.
It's fascinating. Third movie in a franchise. Can't be. Not the Batman movies. We're off there. It's forever's after that. It's too late for the Superman movies. Go ahead.
This last clue will give it away if I give it to you. So.
I mean, I'm
Be ready to chime in. It stars Sigourney Weaver.
Alien 3?
3?
Correct.
David Fincher. Okay.
Yep.
I'm excited. I've never seen this movie, so this is.
I've only seen it one time, and it was so it came out in '92. I was 10 years old. I very vividly remember trying to convince my parents to let me go see it. It's rated R.
Were you successful? No.
I saw it in theater, and it was very dark. I remember it being very, very dark.
Aliens was such a huge movie for me around that time. I mean, it was like watched it constantly and loved everything about that movie. And then this came out and was like, I want to go see this. And my parents were like, no, you can't. It's rated R. So then, we rented it, which my parents rarely ever did. Like, I saw shit I shouldn't ever have seen at a young age. And I remember thinking, did not understand it because it was not, Ripley just saying "shut up, bitch" to the alien and smashing it with an exoskeleton suit. So it's very different from what I remember. But yeah, so Fincher, interesting filmmaker. I don't know if you guys saw The Killer that came out on Netflix, but I thought
7 is right after.
Yep.
Fight Club and.
So. And Alien is one of the greatest movies ever made, and Aliens is also one of the greatest movies ever made. So you figure you go Ridley Scott into James Cameron into David Fincher. Like, can you do any better than those three?
Now, is this one of those multiple versions of it? Is there a Fincher cut versus a studio cut?
I don't know. It's actually Alien to the third, It's not Alien 3. It's like Alien to the Power
Alien
of 3.
Cubed.
Yeah.
So, David Fincher won't even talk about this movie, so I doubt he's ever even revisited it.
I don't know. It's on Hulu. I do know that much. I'm gonna watch the version on Hulu. So
Okay. I'll watch that version too.
That's fine. I can watch that one just so we're all on the same one. So yeah, I do remember vaguely hearing like, so there is like an assembly cut where somebody tried to reconstruct David Fincher's original.
Yeah, I
print.
think famously it was fucked with, right? Like he
By the
made
studio,
it, and
he made his version. The studio's like, nope, and they chopped it up, and he's like,
Right.
screw you guys. That's not my movie. I'm walking away. And then other people, not David Fincher, tried to get as close to his vision as they could.
Yeah.
I think is what it sounds like. Okay. Sounds awesome.
Well, I'm excited. That's I remember it being a good movie.
So this is another one you haven't seen since the theater?
That is correct.
Oh man, that's exciting.
So this, I mean, I the only thing I remember about it is there's a baby. That's really the only piece I remember about it. So
I feel like I remember like magazine cutouts and stuff, like ads for it, but I've never seen it. So
and from what I remember, it looks a lot like the way the Matrix looks when they're out of the Matrix.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like greenish tints and dark.
Yeah, and they're in these like pods and sort of spaceships, and everybody's wearing like tore up clothes and.
Yeah, they're on a prison planet or something.
That's right.
The prison planet the prison has actually moved on, and these people are like what's left over from the prison planet that wanted to stay for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I forgot his name, but the Lannister father is in this movie.
He's in it. He plays a big part for sure.
Oh, what's that guy's name? He's in Golden Child as well, but yes.
Tywin Lannister, right?
Right, well, the actor's
that's
name.
his
His name is Tywin Lannister. So they're going to cast Tywin Lannister to play Tywin Lannister. It's perfect.
Well, he was like a bit. He was
it like
in
Charles
Last Action
Dunce?
Hero.
Does that sound right? Anyway. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just totally off on that. But
Charles Dutton, I think he's in that movie.
Yeah, Charles Dutton is in the movie.
Martin, or not Martin. He was in what show did he have on Fox?
Rock?
Yeah, Rock. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was the
Charles Dance. I'm right. His name is Charles Dance. I said Dunce maybe, but Dance.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's him. He's a great villain. He's also
Last Action Hero.
Yes, there he goes. Yes, he's one of those great villains. Just gets typecast, but he is just so menacing and scary and jerkish. So, all right. Well, this is why I love this podcast. I'm gonna now have a reason to watch Alien 3. It's very exciting.
Yeah, great.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks later. Talking Alien 3 next week.